That is the toll-free number of the Howie Carr Show. We're going to be joined shortly by Ken Cuccinelli. He's the former acting Secretary of Homeland Security for a while, and he's a politician. He ran for governor of Virginia. He was the Attorney General of Virginia. He's a big pro-legal immigration advocate. And we want to talk to him about a number of issues today, but we'll start off with S1, which is the old HR1. It's this House bill. It's 791 pages, last I checked. And basically, it would federalize the entire elections process and make it easier for the sort of mail-in ballots, shenanigans, among many other things. It would make it harder to purge the voter rolls of deceased illegal aliens, felons, et cetera, et cetera. It would automatically register illegal aliens getting driver's licenses. That would mean millions of them. It would do away with voter ID. It's just a horrible, horrible piece of legislation, and it's probably the most of all the terrible things that the Democrats are pushing right now. This could be even worse than the open borders. Ken Cuccinelli, thanks for being with us here on the Howie Carr Show.
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure.
So how bad is
and honestly, Howie, it's related to those open borders. What you and I see as an invasion and a crisis, they see as a voter registration line. So, connect the dots. You see that crisis at the border, again, what you and I would call a crisis. At the same time, they've put through not one, but two amnesty bills through the House and this voter bill, the HR1, which, as you pointed out quite correctly, they would order all the states to register to vote anybody who comes in contact with their state agencies, including people getting those driver's licenses you mentioned, who are illegal aliens or at least not citizens. And so, boom, they're on the voter rolls. And it illegalizes voter ID. So you can't even figure out who people are. It really seems designed to encourage fraud.
If we're going to have no voter IDs, why do we need IDs to go on an airplane or to sign up for a PayPal account, as one of the as somebody mentioned on Twitter the other day?
Or to pick up your baseball tickets at Will Call in Atlanta.
Right. Or pick up your cough medicine. Sometimes, some places you have to produce a driver's license or a photo ID to get cough medicine. Or spray paint,
Yep. Yeah, that's right. And, it goes, and it's interesting, the same people on the radical left trying to push this legislation at the same time when Georgia is trying to clean up its election process, they're screaming, hey, what are you doing? There's no problem. You're just trying to repress votes. And well, if there's no problem, why are you putting through an 800-page election bill that for the first time in American history has the federal government taking over all state elections? Well, consistency is not their hallmark.
I know, you have a friend and a high school classmate on the Supreme Court, and they didn't show a lot of cojones last fall on Texas v. Pennsylvania. But how could the Supreme Court allow this legislation to become law? If it, God forbid, it ever got that far. Isn't this patently unconstitutional?
So, not all of it. And, what we think of when we say that is the part of Article 1, Section 4 that says states, it's called the place, time, and manner provision of the Constitution, where states govern how elections take place. But if you keep reading, it says, but Congress can also regulate those elections where congressional representatives are on the ballot. And of course, that's every 2 years in the even years, which is essentially all elections for most states. Now, I'm in Virginia, where we have odd year elections for our state and local offices, but we're definitely in the minority on that. And thus, this becomes a federal takeover of all elections. And there are provisions that I'm confident would be struck down as unconstitutional, but not all of them. And the whole bill doesn't get struck down that way. And emphasize the point, there are free speech or really anti-free speech provisions in this legislation as well that are so bad that even the ACLU thinks they're unconstitutional. So
right.
You're not alone in that concern.
And also they keep basically a whip hand on the court systems, especially the Supreme Court. And that's like, isn't that a violation of separation of powers?
So Congress can define the jurisdiction of courts. And in this bill, one of the weaknesses of the bill from a legal standpoint is that they order all cases to go only in the D.C. Circuit Court. Now, mind you, the Democrats under Harry Reid stacked that court. That doesn't mean they wouldn't then go on to the Supreme Court. They also say that all challenges to the constitutionality of the bill have to take place in one case.
What?
So that I do not think, I'm serious. It's crazy, and I don't think that part would not hold up. That would be legally challenged and defeated pretty quickly. But it tells you just how little they care about constitutional boundaries when they were drafting this.
This thing worries me a lot, but sometimes I read that, that they, again, I have no faith in Senator Sinema or Senator Manchin, but they say it's going to be unlikely that this thing is going to go through because somebody who's in danger of being defeated in 2022, take, for example, Maggie Hassan, who's running behind Governor Chris Sununu in the polls. She would be unlikely to vote for such a massive, overturning of the republic. Basically, do you agree, or do you think this is a danger that this bill could become law if they get rid of the filibuster?
Oh, if they get rid of the filibuster, I definitely think there's a danger it could become law. And while you're right about Senator Hassan's position in her upcoming election next year, the fact of the matter is she's a co-sponsor on the bill, as radical and crazy as it is. And you know what's interesting? In New Hampshire, the Democrat Secretary of State has criticized their entire congressional delegation for supporting this legislation. And that guy has been in his position, and in their state, it's elected by the legislature. Both Democrat and Republican legislatures continue to reelect this guy to Secretary of State because he does such a good job.
Yeah.
And
he's a normal Democrat, as we used to say.
Fellow Democrat.
We used to call them normal Democrats. There are very, very few left, but he's one of them.
He is one, and it is a swing state in New Hampshire. So, Senator Hassan is at risk there. And I think what you will see is it won't just be Joe Manchin or Kristen Sinema. I think you'll also see Senators Hassan and Tester in Montana, and probably even Feinstein in California, continue to support the filibuster. 4 years ago today, many of them signed a letter. 28 Democrats signed a letter with a bunch of Republicans when the Republicans were in the majority to maintain the filibuster. Mm-hmm. And at that time, Chuck Schumer was supportive of it as well. So if the filibuster, and for those of your listeners who don't know what the filibuster is is a unique rule to the U.S. Senate that requires 60 of the 100 senators to vote to close out debate on a bill. And the reason that's important is because that's how you get to voting on whether the bill passes or not. The effect is that you need to have 60, not 50 or 51, but 60 senators supporting a piece of legislation before you can get it into law. Now, it doesn't apply to budgets or nominees, but for a law like this voting law, if they don't get rid of the filibuster, it is very difficult to see how this ever becomes law. If they do get rid of the filibuster, which has been in place since the first half of the 1800s, then it's hard to see how this bill doesn't pass. And it would be truly tragic for America.
It would. And I'd really like to thank the libertarian candidate in Georgia who kept David Perdue under 50%, which led to this. Because if Perdue had gotten 50% plus one on election night, we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Well, that's true. You're right. We would not.
I don't know how you feel about libertarians, but they create a lot of havoc in the entire system. And I know they have a right to run and all that, but I'm just saying there's consequences for what they do. I got to ask you one more question. In your
Sure.
former role as immigration, what did you think of the two Yemenis being caught at the border on the terrorist watch list, and all of a sudden the story disappears from the Border Patrol website and Twitter feed?
Yeah, which is itself a story, right? Or it would be if we had a media that bothered to press this administration on their censorship of the media. So, first of all, it's shocking but not surprising. Your listeners should know that we encounter people from about 140 different, that's 140 different countries coming across our southern border illegally each year. And so that's about 3/4 of the countries of the world,
right,
including some very, very dangerous places. We think of illegal immigration as Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and they are clearly the lion's share. But it's for the very reason that they're the lion's share that others use the state of play at the border to cross in. And they, of course, aren't just looking for jobs. They want to bring down America. Some of them are criminals, and the drug cartels also direct the flows of the mass of humanity coming across that border to occupy the Border Patrol so that they can send their drugs and other cargo across in other crossing points, and thus, spread their poison across the United States, which kills 70,000 Americans every year just in drug overdoses.
Wow. And the border, I was surprised the Border Patrol even put it up there. I thought they would have been clamped down upon by now, but I'm glad they did. But it's so telling that they don't want the American people to get the news about the bad news about what's down there.
No, the censorship, like I said, the censorship associated with this immigration crisis has been like nothing we've ever seen in decades, and yet hardly a peep out of the media. Hardly a peep. Can you imagine if when I was the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security and we had 170,000 people crossing the border, which never happened under Trump, that we wouldn't let reporters in to take pictures for 2 months, or congressional representatives for a month and a half? They'd have gone berserk.
Right.
And what have you heard out of Congress? Crickets.
And what is it in Donna, Texas? The 1,000 bed facility, which was cut to 250 because of COVID. Now there's 7,000 people in there, and again, crickets. Basically, it's a one-day story. They reported it, but they didn't keep at it. They just did it, and then they went home back to the Beltway.
It's like the guy, the evil character who killed the Capitol police officer the other day. If he had been someone who wasn't Nation of Islam, but was, pick your right of, or
Proud
right
Boys,
group,
Oath
or
Keepers,
even or worse, a white supremacist, we'd still be hearing about it in the news. But it doesn't fit their narrative, and so it drops out of the news after a day.
Right. And Josh Mandel asked Facebook on his Facebook page, the former Secretary of State in Ohio, we had him on yesterday. Yeah. He asked Facebook, why don't you mention that he's Nation of Islam? He gets banned from Facebook for 30 days. It's just outrageous.
It's a one-sided story there. Double standard. And if they didn't have a double standard, they wouldn't have any standard at all. And Josh is one of the best in Ohio.
Yeah. Ken Cuccinelli, we really appreciate you being with us, and thank you for joining us, and we'll have you on again to discuss HR or S1 and also the crisis down on the border. We appreciate you being with us. That's Ken Cuccinelli, the former Homeland Security interim secretary. You know what I miss? A true real break, not a running away from your life break, like when you hide in the bathroom or throw your phone in a drawer, or endless downtime. I mean a break that feels earned, a shortcut you give yourself that makes your life truly easier without sacrificing the end result. That's my experience with HelloFresh. HelloFresh lets me skip the grocery store, the crowds, the traffic, that annoying cart with the broken wheel that I sometimes end up picking without sacrificing delicious meals. And it also allows me to not deal with Karens, with masks, with one-way aisles, with social distancing. You don't need to put up with all that BS in your day-to-day life. HelloFresh will solve the problem for you. You don't have to go to the grocery store. This isn't takeout or some space food you microwave for 10 minutes. These are whole restaurant quality meals made with fresh, pre-portioned ingredients, including the seasonings, by the way, that you can prepare in as little as 20 minutes. My next dish is going to be the chicken cutlets, Taylor.
What's special about those? Because everything HelloFresh does has a little bit of a twist to it. There's always something special in these dishes.
Yeah, they have it. This one. Then I have I think it says the mashed potatoes with it, and it's got the little seasoning that goes on top of the mashed potatoes. And again, I don't have to go shopping through the spices aisle to find it. It just comes. They just have the little packets with it. And
how much turmeric do you need, really?
Exactly. You buy a bottle of turmeric and you use it once, and the next time you see it, it's when you're moving out of the house, and you put a 10-cent sticker on it to get rid of it, and no one wants it. That's the way it works. But you don't have to worry about that with HelloFresh. HelloFresh sends all of the ingredients right to your door and delivers them contact-free. You also get easy-to-follow recipe cards with pictures at every step. With more than 25 chef-created recipes to pick from each week, you'll never run out of meals to try. And something else you can feel good about? HelloFresh is 28% cheaper than shopping at your local grocery store. And again, none of those headaches involved with pandemic shopping. Go to HelloFresh.com/Howie12 and use code Howie12 to get 12 free meals, including free shipping. That's code Howie12 at HelloFresh.com/Howie12 for 12 free meals. HelloFresh.com/Howie12. Code Howie12. I'm Howie Carr.
Keep it here. The captain will be back.
So, Howie.
Yes.
Peter Doocy asked Biden about the Masters, if that should move out of Atlanta.
Yeah.